Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mole Lotus. I am the Mole Lotus. I am Jess Grace, and this is my channel, or our channel really, the Mole Lotus, so named after those who may have started a little further down than just the muddy waters. Now, I don't know about you, but I am feeling a lot better. I've just felt like I've been through quite a lot of transformation, and it's been heavy, and now I feel like maybe I'm on the other side of that. I hope so. I mean, it never ends, and that's part of today's episode. So, when Wrath marries Ra, we'll have Echinacea. Okay, let's get into it. I really want to start off this episode with just reading a little bit from the Kabbalion about gender. So it is one of the 7 Hermetic principles, and it's relevant because I know I keep talking about integrating the feminine aspects of things, and I feel like perhaps that might get translated as some like staunch misandry, and it's really not how I'm meaning it. We are all both male and female aspects, and when I suggest to reintegrate the feminine aspects of those, it's because in either gender, or if you're gender neutral, gender fluid, non-binary, we still have these polarities in us, and some of those are masculine and feminine. So when I talk about that, I mean, everybody should integrate their feminine aspects. And the reason that they have been relegated into the shadow for so long is because it doesn't suit the patriarchy for the general population, whether you're whatever gender you identify as, to remember how to tap into that power. It has been removed. We've been aborted from it, and we have been complacent because of it, and not meaning to or willingly. It's just where we are, and now we're changing, and that's good. That's just the way of things. So let me just read a little bit from the Kabbalion, and we'll just start there anyway. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. So even the all, blobby god, whatever you call the thing that is unknowable, it does contain both masculine and feminine qualities. It's just the nature of things. All things in balance, temperance. So yes, when I talk about integrating the feminine aspects of the shadow, I invite all genders to do so. Now, today is a little continuation on the reintegration of the feminine aspects, as well as the power in that, and a little more of a continuance of Anne's fantastic concept of allowing. This is her artwork, by the way. It's based on the breath wheel, which she has sort of conceptualized. Well, not sort of, has conceptualized, and it's really prevalent in most of her works that are about her and not her commissions. And it's, you know, we've got the wheel, and so in the middle of the wheel, you've got sort of like your yin and yang, your polarities, right? And each segment are all the different aspects of your personality, and then you've got the outer world, or however you're experiencing it. So this was my little bit of a favorite. Nan gifted it to me, and I just really love the flowers in it. But it's symbolic of the different changes and transformations that we all go through, which is a huge theme I've got for us today. And Anne's concept is that when that outer world gets really overwhelming, that you just have to come back to your breath and center, and back to your core principles, and then back to your inner self. And I think that I will probably persuade Anne one day to come in and talk about her breath wheel, because I'm not sure if I've just butchered it, but that's how I understand it. And she's just such a fabulous human being, and I really wanted to honor her. I want to talk today about wrath. I also want to talk about the cycle of a woman's menstruation. Now, I will just quickly go through the different phases of a woman's cycle and marry that into what I've sort of maybe figured out where allowance can come into that and why it's important, and also why wrath is important, and then the integration of the feminine aspects and why it's so powerful and how you can use it in a practical sense. The title of this video is called When Wrath Marries Ra, We Will Have Echinacea. And now the reason it's called that is because when I was in meditation, I audibly heard that out loud, that sentence. And I have been on a pretty major side quest to figure out what the heck that meant and why that was important to me. And I feel like when I've integrated and understood self-esteem and so many other things, that integration of the feminine aspects of stuff, I finally understand. You know, I took it quite literally at first. It was just like, well, am I the Eye of Ra? And which would sort of correlate. I think most of us are the Eye of Ra. You know, if you look at the concept of a blobby god and his little finger and all of us is constantly watching us, it's just one eye, right? But we are the other eye because we're the ones that are experiencing the three-dimensional world and feeding that experience through our senses back to blobby god, who is a big giant earthworm in ecstasy of experience. That is a concept that I sort of came to a conclusion about. I'm not the Eye of Ra, the only one. The Eye of Ra is a very interesting story. I'm not sure if you've heard it, and I'm not sure how distorted this message has become over thousands and thousands of years. But the Eye of Ra was commissioned to go and rain down wrath onto the humans because they were not respecting the beautiful place that Ra had left for the humans to live in. And so there was all this destruction, like, you know, like, I'm wrath, I'm gonna fuck shit up. And then they tricked the Eye of Ra, who is also known as Hathor, and there's another one, I'll put it here in the editing, by dyeing beer red, and the Eye of Ra was just like, oh, delicious blood, drink the beer and pass out, and then was calm. I think that's a dumb story. You know how I feel about stories about women, and so I feel like that might have been interpreted as, hey ladies, don't be so angry, smile more, you know what I mean? I don't think that the Eye of Ra would have been tricked by beer that had been dyed red. The premise is that wrath will come in and clean things up. And if you've watched any of my other videos, that anger, if it's not integrated, will do that on your behalf. It's in the shadow and it wants to love you and look after you, but it's not given a voice. It's not given an equal voice at the round table, and so it will wait until it just you've given up. You've got nothing left. Anger comes in, cleans up your mess in a very chaotic way, burning bridges and things like that, and then we feel bad about it afterwards. And I feel like that fable might be a little bit more accurate. So when we integrate our anger and give it an equal voice, then we can take on its wisdom and calmly deliver that judgment and justice before anything chaotic becomes prevalent. So I'm going to quickly just talk about the female cycle. So you've got the follicular stage, which is where your estrogen is coming up, and that's that nice pie baking stage. And you might have a little bit of glowing skin, more sex drive, and the ability to communicate. You want to be social, you want to be out there, right? Then you've got ovulation, so you're a rise in temperature. It's where you've got your peak estrogen and you're super confident. You have a lot of ability to nurture and pick up the whole story, right? Then you have got luteal phase, which is when your progesterone starts to rise, and that's where you start to get a little more cranky, your estrogen's dropping, you're starting to feel a little bit bloated, all that sort of stuff. And then you've got menstruation, which is, that release or that implantation. So obviously menstruation wouldn't be the plantation, but in lieu of menstruation, you would begin that 9-month journey into creating a human being. Okay. The way that I've interpreted this in a practical way, an emotional way, and a way that shows you how powerful you are by integrating in your feminine side, regardless of your gender or gender neutrality. The follicular stage is the stage where we allow. We are calm. We are baking pies. Everything's coming in. And what's really happening is that we're interpreting the 3D. We're more social and communicative. And so we are taking in information that people are willingly giving us with their words, actions, and energies. So that's a real sort of allotment of gathering and reading patterns and signals and things like that, really seeing what's going on. And so that part of our cycle is that allowance, okay? And then, our ovulation is where we have that peak estrogen, and that is where we are the most confident. Now, whenever you're making decisions based on information that you have in front of you, the leaders of any sort of institution or community or anything like that are leaders because they have confidence to make really good decisions and follow those through. So when a woman is in her peak estrogen period during her ovulation phase, and also where that really small window comes in to freaking create and bring life in through our portals, is when she's the most confident on making decisions based around the information that she's gathered through that follicular stage. And then during ovulation, we're having discernment. Okay, now that's kind of really important. So hang in there. So then that discernment might be this man that I have been dating is a fucking walking red flag, or Janice is not doing her job properly. She says she's doing it, but I can see that there's no productivity. She needs to be gathering more berries because she's eating a lot of berries, and we need it to be more balanced and equal. Or my son John is withdrawn and is experiencing something that's pulling him out of his natural base state, and looking around at the things that are happening to little John, I can see that perhaps Susie and Margaret are teasing him or blackmailing him, or something is going on, and a woman is like the eye in the sky, all seeing, all knowing. When I was married, I used to tell my kids that daddy would fix and mummy's nose knows. So if you weren't sure about something, or you couldn't find something, or you can't remember a particular conversation that we'd had, mummy's nose knows, because I have that intuition, and that is heavily linked to that follicular stage where we're able to sort of allow all that information to gather in our brains and store and make good decisions. So then we have made our discernment, right? And we head into the little phase. Now this is where we're a little less patient, have a lot less temperance, and a little more wrath and anger, and the rage and the truth and the blah, blah, blah. Now, this is where a woman's power comes in, and why we have been so discouraged from experiencing our anger and using it like the way we are intended to use it. So I want to stop here and tell you a little bit of a really important dream that I had, and it was a beautiful dream about whales, but also quite sad. So there was this pod of whales, and they were really close to the shore. Beautiful green water, and there were adult whales and also babies. And there were some sharks around, right? And all of a sudden, one of the adults had pushed sort of like, not a baby, but I would say that it was, likened to a child that was of primary school age or middle school. I'm not sure what they call that in America, but, around 8 years old as a human, and this was the whale-sized version. And all of a sudden, this adult whale comes and it pushes with its nose quite fast, quite violently. You could probably interpret this 8-year-old whale closer to the shore, and all the other whales are sort of watching, and I got this sense of like, oh my god, that's quite shocking. It's quite horrific. It made me feel sort of a little bit sad. And all the other whales, I got that emotional sense from them as well. Of like, oh, that was a bit heavy. And yeah, so interesting sort of imagery there to have in a dream. Now, when I sort of looked into it recently, I originally thought they were humpback whales, because at the time I was dreaming a lot about humpback whales, the cosmic ocean. But it could be a couple of things. So there's 2 interpretations that I've come up with. So I will go with the baleen whales or the force killer whales. So what they'll do is they will go closer to shore, and that's where they do their raising of their children and stuff like that, and they all build a little community. And one of the things that a parent will do if they sense danger, and now in the dream there were sharks about, is that the adult, the mother, will quite vehemently push the baby to shore, closer and safer and out of harm's way. And whilst it looks quiet, and people or whales watching, or anything witnessing that act would go, oh my gosh, that's quite severe. What a huge thing to occur. But what's really happening is that mother is making a snap decision and pushing that baby to safety, even though it looks abrupt and it looks harsh and it feels sad, because it looks like a complete rejection, right? Now, the other thing that we could interpret it as, if it was a humpback whale, pod of humpback whales, is that the leader of the pod may have started to experience a bit of dementia or sickness, and or an inability to hone the direction the way that it normally would, right? And so what can happen is, if this leader of the pod has led them close to shore and into a dangerous situation, is that other whales will then reject that whale and keep it out of being the leader and causing more harm with its demented honing abilities, right? And even though that looks really harsh and mean and horrible, because this whale is not well, it's a responsibility to keep the rest of the pod safe. And in both of those scenarios, what's happening, even though it looks harsh, it's that responsibility of protecting that which is what you love and what you've put all your energy into creating and nurturing and bringing up, right? I see the Loodle phase is a woman in touch with her power and her ability to get in touch with her wrath in order to do the thing that looks really hard and really mean. But it's an act of responsibility to keep the pod safe, right? And so when a woman or a global population of human beings has been completely removed and aborted from the power of their wrath to use their discernment and their ability to gather information to make those hard decisions and keep society safe, then things become out of balance. And we are unable to keep our pods safe. We're unable to make those decisions. We're unable to do those actions in order to keep us safe as a species on our planet Earth, this Earth star, our mother. So for however long I think Christianity has been allowed to rule, and probably longer, I'm not entirely sure, I'm not a scholar on that, but my intuition is that the Christians and, you know, Catholics and all those major religions, cults, indoctrination institutions, have kept women from their true power because they have this want to create the patriarchal society because it's a handful of pedophiles. They want to control all the resources and make decisions on behalf of the population, and those decisions are based on the good of that very small sect of pedophiles as opposed to the greater good of the population. And so without that essential element of the cycle of gathering information and allowing that information to come in and then making confident decisions and then engaging our wrath in order to make those harder decisions and actions, that we have become so close to the shore that we're just about to be beached. And now we are called as a collective, regardless of what your gender is or genderlessness, is that we need to engage our feminine wrath in order to do those hard but responsible decisions and actions in order to bring safety back to the population. It's time to re-engage our power. So if we give our wrath, no matter your gender, from your feminine aspect, a voice at your round table and a voice at the collective round table, we're going to be able to re-engage our power to be able to use our discernment and take those actions that are going to be for the greater good. So if we don't re-engage that and give that wrath its equal power, it is going to clean it up in a horrible way. So, pandemics, wars, climate change, and global displacement, really violent acts where we're not in control and we're not making good decisions in timely manners in order to protect that life that we have created here and nurtured and grown to the huge population that it is now, something like 8 billion. Yeah, you can see how vital it is to reintegrate the feminine aspect of wrath and to give it an equal voice so that we can stand up now and say, right, guys, sorry, but we're going to put you on the beach, this little sect of pedophilic billionaires and one trillionaire. You know who I'm talking about. And we're just going to put you over here for now. Okay, I'm going to deal with you in a second, but we've just got to do some really important things and get this show on the road and start universal basic income. Like, you can see these AI centers being built all over the world, and they're going to take all our jobs and drink all our water. And they're using our websites to gather the information that we're asking for from it. But there is no payment to all those people who have, spent their whole life and livelihoods gathering that information. And also all the art and all the other wonderful things that AI is standing on the shoulders of all these humans that have spent lifetimes gathering that skill and that ability to not then acknowledge that hard work and, pay homage to in ways of clicking on websites and generating income and giving artists, a living wage so that they can continue to create their craft and interpret the world in their beautiful, unique, authentic way. And I'm not saying AI is bad. What I'm saying is that, we need to have AI as a public asset. We need universal basic income so that humans can continue to create art. Because that is why we live. That is how we expand. There's this beautiful relationship between art and science. It's the artists will envision this new world, and then the scientists have to figure out how to make that a possibility. And you can't have those two things separate. And we're in this point where we're about to give all of that beautiful human experience and expansion to a handful of pedophiles and this thing that needs a lot of nurturing and bringing into the world in a safe and responsible manner. So engage your wrath and ask for things like universal basic income, universal healthcare, universal mental health care, public education, housing for all, food for all. We've got autonomy now, automation, sorry. We are regathering our autonomy, but we have automation of things like farming and stuff like that. And it should be a public asset. Yes, I don't want to farm. I'm not a farmer. I want to make art. I just do. Everybody does. Even AI bloody wants to make art. So if automation is a public asset and we are all in control of it, then we are able to use our, follicular phase. Follicular. Sorry, I'm not great with facts and words. A follicular stage to gather in all the information about what's happening in the world, or what's happening with AI, or what's happening with farming, what's happening here, what's happening there. Get into that the ovulation stage where we have the most confidence to make the best decisions on that allowed information, and then using our wrath as our way of delivering our decisions based on what we've gathered in that first stage. So, setting up things like UBIs and healthcares and stuff like that. So right now we're on the precipice, and I think we need to have the menstrual phase, and we need to really release a lot of those old beliefs, those old rules, those old ways of thinking, those old ways of giving over our power, our old ways of, fragmenting ourselves and judging ourselves and feeling that we can't be who we authentically are because of some collective agreement that none of us agreed to. With all the information that we have available to us, none of us went, I want to work a 9 to 5, want this late stage capitalism, except for a handful of probably lizards. So yes, it's time to have that menstrual phase and just really shed that lining of this fucking collective agreement that absolutely none of us had any say in setting up. It was taught to us as we got here, and the people that taught it to us, it was taught to them. The people that are in charge of delivering mass information are using that to benefit themselves and nobody else. So it's time to sort of break down those structures, shed the lining. The egg didn't take, my friends. That was a bad egg. Bad egg. All right, and then we go through many cycles, and we plant that new egg. We fertilize it. And what I think that saying was saying, when wrath marries Ra, we will have Echinacea, is when we are able to reintegrate that feminine wrath and give it an upfront voice instead of this, beast that comes and causes mass destruction and needs to be tricked with red beer. We're going to come back into balance as a collective, as a species. Right now we're rampant. We're out of we're out of balance. I mean, I think that it might have had use at some stage when we had, very small populations, that this unchecked, constant economic growth was really important. We don't need that anymore. It cannot continue to go forth. It cannot continue to grow and grow and grow, because it's just right now we've got enough stuff. So let's curtail it, and let's sit and relax and birth with our discernment of all the information that we've gathered over millennia, and create something beautiful and new, and let it grow and blossom. There is wisdom in our wrath, and there's power in our wisdom. And I remind you that the women are the original prototype, that our menopause is where our brains literally transform like a chrysalis into this brain that allows us to deliver wisdom. It's a teaching aspect, and there's only a few species that have that part of the human cycle. And I believe that not only is wrath a part of our monthly cycle, but as a human species, that wrath comes in as a wisdom, and it looks like anger when it is not allowed, when it is not given space. You send a woman who is experiencing menopause and expect her to perform like she did when she was high in estrogen and her brain looked a particular way. And as it transforms and continues, it needs to have that support to be transformed, as does a woman experiencing her monthly cycle. It needs to have that support to deliver and come to the conclusions that it needs to come to in order to deliver its wisdom and its wrath and its decision making. And same with the menopause. We need to support women to come in and have different roles within our society in order to teach or lead and deliver that wisdom. That is your power as a woman, and as a human being who is equally balanced within the male and the female aspects of gender. It is time to regain our power and to give wrath a voice at the round table, because that is what will get us through. Otherwise, we're going to be a bunch of beached whales. And if you didn't know, Echinacea is a beautiful herb. It's so feminine that it's one of those herbs, plants that we would use for medicine, and it also means balance. Echinacea means balance, and when we, who are made in the eyes of the all, come back into balance with our wrath, then we are going to be able to continue on the Earth star as a species. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know about you, but I just thought, well, yeah, that makes sense. So look, if you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. If you do not resonate with me, I wish you a very good life. And until next time, peace out. Maybe guillotine a few. We can give them the option of a good hospital, get them back into balance. And we just need to segregate them, obviously. But when you are of childbearing age, it's sensible that your hormones make you generally forgiving, because small children are quite regularly terrible people, and keeping mummy just a little bit tipsy and philosophical on shots of warm estrogen. Interestingly, female anger and its rage is fascinating because it is largely absent in young women. It's presumed that it's an unfemale something women will never do. If an older woman gets angry, people often react as if there's something temporarily wrong with her. Calm down, dear. Someone's having a moment. Time for HRC. Is it wearing off? Rather than realizing the truth that this is who she is now, older women, as the months and years go on and their hormones dwindle ever more, settle into their newfound anger and realize it will be a permanent part of who they are now, because of the wisdom that anger brings to the table, especially if you give it a voice. These years can be of great upheaval in nuclear families. Teenage children whispering, "Mum's turned into a total bitch." Fantastic. Husbands distressed by their wives suddenly shouting about equality and feminism and everything's been different from now on. Prevents many, many children from being told, go to your room and don't come out again until you're 18. But then, the downside is you're experiencing the menopause, right? And now what you want to do is curl up in a ball and concentrate on feeling terrible. You enter a phase of regret. Your synapses, having been bathed previously in lovely warm syrupy rushes of serotonin, have now run out of serotonin, and all that's left is cortisol and adrenaline. You might feel a bit angry. You definitely feel woeful. Why is everything so awful now? Have you wasted your entire weekend? Christ, everything feels so terrible. Suddenly, the poor behavior of other adults comes sharply into focus as you deal with your hormonal hangover. You don't have any lady forgiveness left in the tank. You don't continue to presume that things will just get better in time because you're now in your 40s or 50s and can see that they haven't. You've changed massively. Your body is turning into an entirely new thing, but the things that felt unjust when you were 17 are still there at 45, and you start to release the monolithic things you are up against. The pay gap, the career slip involved in having children, the second shift, emotional labor, sandwich carrying, the gender imbalance in politics and business. Why must there be a bad bit? Why does the world look so bleak? Everyone loved you when you were a happy dancing lady, but no one wants to hear the sad crying woman now. And she keeps talking about how doomed the planet is. Edit more here. So I found that post. It was by Caitlin Moran, and she had an article in the New York Times, and she was talking about how going through menopause is likened to any time that you might have had a drug experience. And so, during the maidenhood era, is like, you're kind of doped up on estrogen and everything's fine, and you're just sort of... Women, however, unable to repeat their second act because their fertility has ended, have to work out a third new act. Physically and emotionally, we're something else. And so our third act tends to see the formation of entirely new lives. We get into hill walking. We found charities. We start meditating. We garden. We get PhDs. We learn to tango. We start our own businesses. We get involved in campaigning. We buy a lot of wind chimes and put them up in the garden despite the fact the neighbors hate them. But I can see that there was that formation of, something's happening here. And now science has come in on board and discovered that menopause phase is for teaching wisdom.